Niccolo Machiavelli. Niccolo Machiavelli was an Italian Renaissance diplomat, philosopher and writer, best known for The Prince, written in 1513. He has often been called the father of modern political philosophy. He was one of the most controversial figures of Western political thought. The term Machiavellian often connotes political deceit, deviousness, and realpolitik. Life: Machiavelli was born in Florence, Italy, in 1469 and died 1527 in Florence. Machiavelli was taught grammar, rhetoric, and Latin. For many years, he served as a senior official in the Florentine Republic with responsibilities in diplomatic and military affairs. He wrote comedies, carnival songs, and poetry. His personal correspondence is of high importance to historians and scholars. He worked as secretary to the Second Chancery of the Republic of Florence from 1498 to 1512, when the Medici were out of power. He has written two masterpiece books, The Prince, and Discourses on Livy. Era of Machiavelli. Machiavelli was born in a tumultuous era in which popes waged acquisitive wars against Italian city-states, and people and cities often fell from power as France, Spain, and the Holy Roman Empire battled for regional influence and control. Political military alliances continually changed, featuring condottieri mercenary leaders who changed sides without warning, and the rise and fall of many short-lived governments. Ideas and contribution. Machiavelli's ideas are derived from his two books, The Prince, and Discourses on Livy. The Prince, Machiavelli's Prince, was much read as a manuscript long before it was published in 1532, and the reaction was mixed. Some considered it a straightforward description of the evil means used by bad rulers. Others read in it evil recommendations to tyrants to help them maintain their power. Machiavelli considered political battles, not through a lens of morality, but as though they are a board game with established rules. His experience showed him that politics have always been played with deception, treachery, and crime. Scholars often note that Machiavelli glorifies instrumentality in state building, an approach embodied by the saying, often attributed to interpretations of The Prince, the ends justify the means. Fraud and deceit are held by Machiavelli as necessary for a prince to use. Violence may be necessary for the successful stabilization of power and introduction of new political institutions. Force may be used to eliminate political rivals, to destroy resistant populations, and to purge the community of other men strong enough of a character to rule, who will inevitably attempt to replace the ruler. Machiavelli has become infamous for such political advice, ensuring that he would be remembered in history through the adjective, Machiavellian. Discourses on Livy. The Discourses on the first 10 books of Titus Livius, written around 1517, published in 1531, often referred to simply as the Discourses or Discorsi, is nominally a discussion regarding the classical history of early ancient Rome, although it strays very far from this subject matter and also uses contemporary political examples to illustrate points. Machiavelli presents it as a series of lessons on how a republic should be started and structured. It is a much larger work than The Prince, and while it more openly explains the advantages of republics, it also contains many similar themes from his other works. For example, Machiavelli has noted that to save a republic from corruption, it is necessary to return it to a monarchical state, using violent means. This book became one of the central texts of modern republicanism, and has often been argued to be a more comprehensive work than The Prince. Political ideas of Niccolo Machiavelli. Leo Bach precisely describes his whole ideas in 3 words: immoralization, nationalization, and secularization. According to Edward McChesney, Machiavelli's whole emphasis is simply on the art of maintaining oneself in power. No doubt, Machiavelli was above and beyond all else a preacher of the principle of patriotism and the idea of national state. 5 important political ideas of Machiavelli. First, he believes that the well-being of the state is the responsibility of the ruler and should be achieved by any means possible, even by deceptions, treacheries, and intrigues. The ruler's personal morality is much less important than the good of the state, for he will be judged by the results of his reign rather than the means he used. In short, a prudent ruler cannot and must not honor his words. Second, he argues that an effective leader can harness the weaker traits of humanity in his people to great effect, in the same way that a sheepdog can manipulate a herd of sheep. Third, by analyzing politics using military theory, he concludes that the essence of most political life is conspiracy. Fourth, in his less popular work, Discourses on Livy, he strongly advocated republicanism rather than any form of monarchy or oligarchy. He modeled the Roman Republic as ideal with mixed constitution and participation by citizens who are protected by properly constituted citizens' army instead of a militia of hired mercenaries. Fifth, as he puts in The Prince, in the actions of all men, especially princes, where there is no recourse to justice, the end is all that counts. A prince should only be concerned with conquering or maintaining a state, for the means will always be judged to be honorable and praiseworthy by each and every person, because the masses always follow appearances and the outcomes of affairs, and the world is nothing than the masses. He strongly emphasizes that, a prince never lacks legitimate reasons to break his promise. Political ideas of Niccolo Machiavelli. Absolutism. In the opinion of Sabine, Machiavelli is the father of absolute monarchy. He suggested the separation between religion, morality and politics. In political matters the king will have the last word to say and all other centers must submit his political power. In the words of Sabine, absolute monarchy overturned feudal constitutionalism and the free city-states, on which medieval civilization had largely depended. Ecclesiastical rulers were everywhere subjected more and more to royal control and in the end church's legal authority disappeared. McClelland aptly observes, in the Discourses Machiavelli makes it perfectly clear that the ruthless rule of a new prince is only one of the forms of government. Machiavelli was quite acquainted with various forms of government including democracy or republicanism. But he preferred dictatorship or despotism as the most suitable form of government. To Machiavelli politics was an end and its mechanism was military power. He was so adamant in this respect that he was not prepared to make any compromise. The policy adopted by the prince may be cruel, faithless or lawless, but that is quite immaterial. The point is whether it could help the prince to achieve success. Reason of the state. The most revolutionary aspect of Machiavelli's idea about politics is the reason of the state. Ebenstein writes, before Machiavelli all political writings, from Plato and Aristotle through Middle Ages to the Renaissance, had one central question, the end of the state. Machiavelli assumes that power is an end in itself. The fact is that the central concept of Machiavelli's political philosophy is the power of the state and, without power, the state is almost nothing. This is called the reason of the state. A true prince must accumulate physical power by any means and apply it for the sake of the state. In the Discourses he said, a prince must build on sound foundation, otherwise he is bound to come to grief. The power of the prince means the power of the state. Hobbes also held the same view. Machiavelli possessed a clear conception about human nature and for such nature a powerful state is essential. He was a practical man and he was not guided by any sentiment. That built up his reason of the state. Politics and religion. Renaissance. Luther, Calvin and Machiavelli are almost contemporary. Both not racy and individualism are the products of the Renaissance, but simultaneously despotism emerged along with them. Church and papacy were forced to surrender their supremacy and dictatorial manner of functioning and the vacuum created in this way were forthwith filled up by the rise of monarchy. According to Machiavelli, if a prince wants to achieve success he must make serious efforts to separate religion and morality from politics. He should use these for his personal use only. The prince must not hesitate to use immoral means and unethical ways and corrupt practices to achieve success in political fields. A prince should not run after admiration. His subjects may throw him eulogy and admiration for being honest and religious-minded, but they will never forgive him for his failure in political affairs. Machiavelli recommends a double standard of morality and ethics, one for the ruler and the other for citizens. The reason suggested by Machiavelli is that the supreme objective of the prince is to achieve success in political fields. Religion, morality and ethics should not be allowed to stand on the way of success. By recommending the above, Machiavelli clearly indicated the separation between politics and religion. This may also be called the autonomy of politics, which implies that the politics has an exclusively different world. This is called secularization of politics. Machiavelli thought that politics and religion are different because their fields are separate. He had a firm belief that for all sorts of corruption in politics, religion is absolutely responsible. Omnipotent legislator. Machiavelli's concept of state or his philosophy is closely connected with his notion of omnipotent legislator. He makes the following observation in Discourses. But we must assume, as a general rule, that it never or rarely happens that a republic or monarchy is well constituted, or its old institutions entirely reformed, Unless it is done by only one individual, it is even necessary that he whose mind has conceived such a constitution should be alone in carrying it into effect. According to his views, for a strong state, there must be two necessary instruments, one is good law and the other is well-regulated army. The prince first of all will try to administer the state with the help of law and, where necessary, army will be called. Interpreters of Machiavelli's political thought are of opinion that he advised his prince to rely mainly on law. Influence on others. Machiavelli's ideas had a profound impact on political leaders throughout the modern West, helped by the new technology of the printing press. The Prince was the best book of Thomas Cromwell and Henry VII. The importance of Machiavelli's influence is notable in many important figures in this endeavor, for example Bodin, Francis Bacon, Algernon Sidney, Harrington, John Milton, Spinoza, Rousseau, Hume, Edward Gibbon, and Adam Smith. Although he was not always mentioned by name as an inspiration, due to his controversy, he is also thought to have been an influence for other major philosophers, such as Montaigne, Descartes, Hobbes, Locke and Montesquieu. Scholars have argued that Machiavelli was a major indirect and direct influence upon the political thinking of the founding fathers of the United States due to his overwhelming favoritism of republicanism and the republican type of government. Benjamin Franklin, James Madison and Thomas Jefferson followed Machiavelli's republicanism when they opposed what they saw as the emerging aristocracy that they feared Alexander Hamilton was creating with the Federalist Party. The 20th-century Italian communist Antonio Gramsci drew great inspiration from Machiavelli's writings on ethics, morals, and how they relate to the state and revolution in his writings on passive revolution, and how a society can be manipulated by controlling popular notions of morality.